I've been avoiding this report for almost 2 months. Administration has requested it repeatedly, and every time I sit down to write, I find something else that needs doing. A chart to finish, a meeting to attend, a coffee to reheat. The truth is, I don't know how to describe what happened on February 9th without sounding like I've lost my grip on reality. But you want a report? So here it is. My name's Dr. Adrian Cole, emergency medicine for 14 years, 10 of them here at Bayside Regional Hospital. In that time, I've seen everything an ER doctor can see. Car wrecks, gunshots, overdoses, farm accidents, kids who didn't make it, kids who did. I've held pressure on arteries while blood pumped through my gloves. I've called time of death more times than I care to count. I've also brought people back who had no business surviving. After all that, you start to think you've seen it all. You start to think there's a rhythm to the chaos, that every case, no matter how strange, fits somewhere in the anatomy of human failure. But I was wrong. This is the case that made me transfer out of trauma medicine. It's why I only work days now. And it's the reason I see a therapist once a week, whether I feel like it or not. If that sounds dramatic, you'll understand by the time you're done reading. It was Friday night, February 9th. I was scheduled for the overnight shift with Dr. Elise Tran, our senior resident, sharp, calm, methodical. She's one of those rare doctors who can keep her tone level while the world falls apart. Our charge nurse that night was Caleb Ricks, 25 years in trauma, the kind of guy who knows where every piece of equipment is by touch. If I were dying, I'd want Caleb on the other side of the gurney. At 11:42 p.m., we got the call. Multi-vehicle collision on Highway 64. 1 confirmed fatality, 1 ejection, multiple injuries. ETA 7 minutes. Now, ejections are bad. You learn that early in this job. When someone's thrown from a car, the odds aren't in their favor. Internal bleeding, skull fractures, spinal cord injury, degloving, you name it. Most of them don't even make it to the ER. Those who do usually arrive with injuries incompatible with life. So when EMS radioed again at 11:49 and said, ejected male, conscious, talking, I remember glancing at Elise and saying, that's impossible. She nodded. Maybe they're mixing up patients. They weren't. At 11:54, the doors burst open and the paramedics rolled in a man on a backboard. The first thing that hit me wasn't the smell of blood or the chaos, it was how calm the patient looked. He was mid-30s, brown hair matted with dirt, dressed in shredded jeans and what had once been a leather jacket. The paramedics' report was brisk. Name's Daniel Reeve, 33. Ejected from his vehicle at highway speed, approximately 65 miles an hour. No loss of consciousness. GCS 15. Vitals stable en route. I stepped closer, expecting to see massive trauma, abrasions, contusions, something. Instead, Daniel Reeve turned his head toward me and said, perfectly calmly, good evening, doctor. I'm grateful for the quick response. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. People who've just been thrown from a moving vehicle don't thank you like they're checking into a hotel. I started the primary survey. Airway, breathing, circulation, all normal. Pulse, steady. Blood pressure, normal. Oxygen saturation, perfect. For someone who'd just been launched out of a car, his vitals were textbook. Let's get his clothes off, I said to Caleb. Full trauma exam. Caleb began cutting away the remnants of fabric. The jeans came apart like tissue paper, the jacket peeled off in strips. The man's clothes looked like they'd been dragged behind a truck, but the skin beneath was perfect. No cuts, no bruises, no embedded gravel, not a single patch of road rash. Caleb stopped mid-cut and stared at me. Doc, this isn't possible. I didn't answer right away. My mind was already racing through the checklist. Maybe he'd been shielded somehow. Maybe he'd landed in grass. Maybe he hadn't actually been ejected. But EMS confirmed what I already knew. His car had rolled, and they'd found him 20 feet from the wreck. Still, the man's skin was flawless. I forced myself to stay clinical. Mr. Reeve, I said, keeping my tone neutral, I need to perform a full exam. Any pain anywhere? None whatsoever, he said, smiling slightly. I feel fine. Any dizziness, nausea, ringing in your ears? No, doctor. I feel quite good, actually. That word, good, coming from someone who should have been dead, sent a cold twist down my spine. We finished removing his clothing. It looked like it had been through a shredder, entire sections missing, fabric burned and torn. Underneath, his skin was unblemished. Elise leaned closer, inspecting his arms. There's not even microabrasion, she murmured. I asked the paramedics, you said he was ejected? Completely, one of them replied. Windshield shattered. He went through it, landed on the asphalt. I felt my pulse climb. And this is how you found him? Exactly like this. No bleeding, no visible trauma. Daniel watched our exchange with quiet amusement. Is something wrong, doctors? I forced a professional smile. No, just being thorough. He nodded. That's admirable. We drew labs, ordered a full CT scan, X-rays, the works. While waiting, I stepped into the hallway. Elise followed. She whispered, Adrian, this guy should be in pieces. There's no way he's intact after that kind of mechanism. I know, I said. His vitals are better than mine. Maybe it's shock. Then it's the calmest shock I've ever seen. We stood there for a moment, the beeping of monitors leaking through the door. Neither of us said what we were thinking, that the whole thing was starting to feel wrong. At 1:10 a.m., the results came in. Every single test was normal. CT head, no fractures, no bleeds. CT chest and abdomen, no organ damage, no internal bleeding. X-rays, perfect alignment, intact bones. Labs, clean. I've seen people walk away from crashes they shouldn't have, sure. But this was something else. Elise stared at the scans. There's not even inflammation. Nothing. I know, I said quietly. It's like his body doesn't realize it's supposed to be hurt. I went back into the trauma bay. Daniel was sitting up now, posture straight, eyes clear. Mr. Reeve, I said carefully, all of your tests are normal, which is very unusual considering what you went through. I've always been fortunate that way, he said. My body tends to heal quickly. Quickly? Yes. Even when I do get hurt, it doesn't last. I didn't like the way he said it. Too casual. Too sure. Have you been in other accidents before? He smiled faintly. A few. What kind of work do you do? I'm in risk evaluation. I study dangerous environments for insurance firms. That explained his composure, maybe. People used to chaos develop strange tolerance for it. But it didn't explain why he wasn't bleeding. I documented everything. Patient exhibits no signs of trauma despite reported ejection. I reread the line twice before saving it. It felt absurd even in writing. Around 2:45 a.m., I paged Dr. Helena Ward, our trauma attending. 15 years in surgery, clinical to the core. If anyone could make sense of this, it was her. She arrived just after 3 o'clock, hair pulled back, still wearing her coat from home. What have you got for me, Cole? Ejection at 65 miles an hour. Conscious on arrival. Normal vitals. Normal imaging. Not a scratch. Her eyebrow lifted. Not a scratch. None. She stepped inside, introduced herself, and started her own exam. 10 minutes later, she emerged looking as puzzled as I'd ever seen her. I've never encountered anything like this, she said. Mechanism of injury and presentation don't match. There's no medical explanation for it. So what do we do? She folded her arms. Medically, nothing. He's stable. But I want him under observation for 24 hours. Maybe something's incubating. We admitted him to the step-down trauma unit. He thanked us politely, like a businessman checking out of a hotel suite. When I asked for emergency contact info, he waved it off. No need to trouble anyone. I should have pushed harder. But at the time, I was too busy trying to make sense of physics failing in front of me. Before I left that morning, I checked on him once more. He was sitting upright, reading a newspaper. How are you feeling, Mr. Reeve? Excellent, doctor. You've all been very kind. Do you remember anything else about the crash? He lowered the paper and studied me for a second. Tell me something, doctor. How often do you encounter patients who don't fit the rules of medicine? Sometimes, I admitted. There are still things we don't understand about the human body. He smiled, not kindly. Indeed. The body can be extraordinary when it needs to be. I left his room with a feeling I couldn't name. It wasn't fear. It was something quieter, like standing too close to an electrical current. When I returned for my next shift 36 hours later, Reeve was gone. The nurse at the desk said, "He checked out." "Signed out against medical advice?" She frowned. "No, doctor. He just isn't here. We thought you discharged him." I hadn't. I went straight to the trauma ward. His bed was made, fresh sheets untouched. His personal items, shredded clothes, torn shoes, gone. Security reviewed the footage. Nothing. He never walked out, never took an elevator, never passed the lobby. It was like he vanished between one frame and the next. I called Dr. Ward. "Helena, Reeve's gone." "What do you mean gone?" "As in, he's not in the hospital." And no one saw him leave. By midnight, we'd notified hospital administration and local police. Detective Laura Mendez took the case. She was professional, skeptical, and unimpressed by hospital weirdness. After reviewing the footage herself, she said, "This isn't possible. People don't just disappear in secured facilities." She investigated the crash site. The car had rolled 3 times. Airbags deployed. No seatbelt. The forensic team confirmed what the paramedics said. There were no blood traces, no tissue, no evidence anyone had actually hit the pavement. The crash happened, Mendez told me, but there's nothing proving a person was ever in that car. That was when the unease turned to something darker. I started digging. Medical databases, case archives, even Reddit threads where doctors anonymously share bizarre patient stories. Within a week, I found 8 similar cases. Different hospitals, same pattern. Patients involved in catastrophic accidents, plane crashes, explosions, building collapses, who arrived alive, intact, and left without a trace. In every report, the same anomalies. Flawless vitals, clean scans, rapid disappearance, and in most cases, corrupted or missing security footage. The doctors who treated them all described the same aftermath: insomnia, anxiety, a creeping sense of dread they couldn't explain. 2 left emergency medicine entirely. 1 vanished from the registry. I tried to convince myself it was just coincidence. Stress. Burnout. But I knew better. Because every night after that, I dreamt of Daniel Reeve's eyes, clear, calm, and far too knowing. 3 weeks later, I was finishing a late shift when Sonia, our triage nurse, approached me. "Dr. Cole, there's someone here asking for you by name." "What's the complaint?" "He says it's not a medical emergency. He just wants to talk." "Did he give a name?" "Daniel Reeve." The world tilted. My heart kicked once hard. "Where is he?" "In the waiting room." I walked out, and there he was, sitting casually in one of the chairs, wearing a gray sweater, jeans, and that same unsettling smile. When he saw me, he stood and said, "Dr. Cole, it's good to see you again. What are you doing here?" I managed. "Just wanted to thank you for your thorough care. Most doctors would have dismissed me as an anomaly, but you asked the right questions." I took a step closer. "Who are you?" He smiled again. "You already know I'm not what I appeared to be." "Why me?" I asked. "Because you were curious. Curiosity has consequences." He turned toward the doors, then paused and looked back. "You might consider a change of specialty, doctor. Emergency medicine has a way of exposing people to things they're not ready to see." Then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, heart hammering, unable to move. After he left that night, I stood frozen for what felt like 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The sliding doors closed behind him with that soft pneumatic sigh, and the moment they did, it was as if the air changed. The background hum of the waiting room came back into focus, people coughing, a baby crying, the receptionist tapping at her keyboard. I turned to Sonia. "Did you see that man leave?" She frowned. "Yeah, he just walked out. Is everything okay?" I wanted to tell her no, that nothing was okay. But all I said was, "Yeah, it's fine. Go back to triage." I walked outside. The parking lot was empty except for a few cars under the sodium lamps. He was gone, just like before. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Not menacing, just calm. Calm in a way that made me feel small and mortal. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. I was tired, working too many shifts, letting stress turn coincidence into paranoia. People don't just disappear. Cameras fail. Records get corrupted. There's a rational explanation for everything. That's what I told myself until I came into work Monday morning. The hospital was buzzing. Someone from administration wanted to talk to me, Dr. Melanie Cross, the medical director. She was waiting in my office when I got there. "Adrian," she said, "there's been an incident." I knew before she finished. The police found the vehicle from the Highway 64 accident. Forensics confirms it's the same one from Reeves' chart. They also found the recording from the paramedic's body cam. It shows them extracting the patient and transferring him to your care. So, what's the problem? The problem, she said carefully, is that there's no record of him in our system. I blinked. That's impossible. His file's right here. Chart number 27. Not anymore. She turned her monitor toward me. Every entry related to Daniel Reeve was gone. Chart, lab orders, imaging, even his admission timestamp. It was as if the patient had never existed. I called IT myself. They swore there'd been no deletion, no server reset, no access logs showing edits. Elise came down from the residence wing, pale. They pulled my notes, too. Everything about that case just vanished. Dr. Ward joined us later, arms folded tight. "Someone's cleaning house," she said. Either that or she didn't finish the sentence. The hospital launched an internal investigation. The police tried to subpoena the medical records, but there were none left to give. The footage from security cameras that night was still blank between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., the exact window when Reeve disappeared. Detective Mendez came back one last time exhausted. We checked the crash site again. There's no trace of him. No family, no address, no social security. If this guy existed, he covered his tracks better than anyone I've ever seen. She paused, looking at me like she wanted to say more. Then she added quietly, "You look like hell, doctor. Maybe take some time off." I didn't argue. The next week blurred together. Every noise made me jump. Every patient reminded me of him, the ones who survived when they shouldn't have, the ones who died too easily. I found myself staring too long at healthy people, wondering if they were real. On Wednesday night, I woke up to tapping at my apartment door. 3 sharp knocks, then silence. I waited, heart pounding. No one knocked again. When I finally worked up the nerve to check, the hallway was empty. But taped to the door was a single piece of paper, blank on both sides. That was the night I realized I couldn't stay in emergency medicine anymore. When I told Dr. Cross I wanted to transfer departments, she looked surprised, but didn't question it. "You've earned it," she said gently. "Family practice could use someone with your experience." I signed the transfer paperwork the same day. Elise stopped me in the hallway after the meeting. "You're really leaving?" "I have to. You're one of the best trauma docs we have." "Not anymore." She hesitated. "You think he was human?" I didn't answer. Her eyes searched mine, then she whispered, "I don't think he was either." The following month was the first time in years I wasn't working nights. I started sleeping again, poorly, but it was something. My new clinic was quiet, predictable. Diabetes, hypertension, seasonal allergies. No sirens, no blood, no missing patients. Still, I caught myself glancing at the waiting room door every time it opened, half expecting him to walk through. One afternoon, a new patient came in for a physical. Young guy, mid-30s. Calm smile. Blue sweater. When he shook my hand, my heart skipped. For a split second, I thought it was him. But it wasn't. Just another stranger with familiar features. I laughed it off later, but the tremor in my hand didn't go away for hours. Around that time, I started compiling notes, partly for my sanity, partly to remind myself it wasn't all in my head. I gathered every piece of the puzzle I could find, the missing records, the police report, even snippets from the accident investigation. Then I went back online. The other cases were still there, tucked into obscure medical boards and archived articles. One thread caught my attention, a retired surgeon from Nevada describing a man who'd survived being trapped under a collapsed building without so much as a bruise. The surgeon said the patient thanked him afterward for his curiosity. The post ended abruptly 2 days later. The surgeon's account was deleted. I shut my laptop and didn't open it again for a week. By spring, I'd almost convinced myself it was over. Then, one morning, a plain envelope arrived at the clinic with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the hospital discharge summary I'd written for Daniel Reeve. Only it wasn't my handwriting. The signature line read, Adrian Cole, MD. But the ink was darker, neater, and not mine. I locked my office door, staring at the page until the letters seemed to move. The next day, I handed in my resignation from Bayside Regional. I told them I needed a sabbatical. That was partly true. I left the city that weekend. It's been almost a year now. I run a small family practice 2 towns over. No ER calls. No traumas. Just flu shots, sore throats, and the occasional sprained ankle. My patients trust me. They don't ask about the transfer, and I don't volunteer the story. But I still keep that discharge paper locked in my desk drawer. Sometimes, when the clinic is quiet, I take it out and study it. The handwriting looks freshly inked, like it was written yesterday. There's a line at the bottom that wasn't on the original. Some things heal faster than others. I've thought about burning it, but I can't. It feels like evidence, proof that he was real. Proof that I didn't imagine any of it. A few weeks ago, one of my new patients mentioned having worked in insurance risk analysis. I froze mid-sentence. "Are you all right, doctor?" he asked. "Yeah, I lied. Just a headache." When he left, I watched through the window as he crossed the parking lot. For a split second, his gait, his posture, it looked like Reeve. Then he turned the corner and was gone. That night, I had the same dream again. Headlights spinning, glass shattering, the moment just before impact, but instead of crashing, I wake up standing on the highway, untouched, hearing my own voice say, "You're asking the wrong questions." I haven't told my therapist that part. Some things are better left unspoken. Sometimes I wonder if I'd recognize him again. Not just his face, him. The way he looked at the world like he wasn't part of it. I still can't decide what he was. A survivor. A ghost. A mistake in nature. Or something else entirely. But one thing I do know, he wasn't an accident. He came to me deliberately. And when he left something behind, curiosity, maybe, or fear. The kind that hums just below the surface every time the phone rings after dark. I've rewritten this report twice. Once for the official record, once for myself. This version is for whoever finds it next. If you're reading this because you had a patient like mine, someone who shouldn't have survived, I need you to listen carefully. Don't dig. Don't ask questions. Don't try to prove it. These things, whatever they are, don't want to be studied. They appear when they want to. They vanish the same way. And if you go looking, they'll find you first. I'm a good family doctor now. I help people with the simple, human problems I understand: coughs, broken bones, blood pressure, the slow deterioration we can't stop but can ease. But I'll never work trauma again. Because somewhere out there, something exists that can survive being thrown from a car at highway speed without losing a drop of blood. And whatever that something is, it knows that I know. So I keep my doors locked. I keep my head down. And every time I hear a siren in the distance, I whisper the same thing under my breath. Don't bring him here.